The purpose of the City of Lake Worth meeting is to convene the second mandatory public hearing on the fiscal year 2015-2016 proposed millage rate and proposed operating budget as required by and pursuant to sections 166 and 200.065 of the Florida statutes. On July 14, 2015, the City Commission set a tentative millage rate of 5.4945 mils and was advertised in the Truth and Millage trim notices sent to property owners by the Palm Beach County Appraiser, and also informed property owners that the first public mandatory hearing was to be held on September 15, 2015. On September 15th, the City Commission voted for and adopted a tentative millage rate of 5.4945 mils for fiscal year 2015 and 2016. On September 15th, 2015, the City Commission also voted for and adopted a tentative operating budget for fiscal year 2015-16. On September 18th, 2015, the second mandatory hearing was published in the Palm Beach Post announcing a proposed rate increase over the rollback rate. The budget appropriation summary was also published on that day. We have received the proof of publication. At this time, the City Manager will read the resolution to adopt the final millage rate for FY 15-16.
Madam Mayor, I'll read the title of the resolution and the manager will then provide some details. Resolution number 52-2015 of the City of Lake Worth, Florida, Municipal Corporation, State of Florida, levying municipal taxes on all taxable property within the City of Lake Worth, Florida for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2015, ending September 30, 2016, repealing all resolutions and ordinance in conflict herewith and providing for the effective date thereof.
Madam Mayor and Commissioners, one of the requirements of the trim legislation is to provide information about why a proposed millage rate could be higher than the rollback millage rate. The proposed tentative millage rate adopted by the city in July for trim purposes was 5.4945 mils, which is 8.53% more than the rollback rate of 5.0628 mils. The millage proposed for the fiscal year 2015 and 2016 budget is the same as last year's 5.4945 mils. The taxes above specified at the total millage rate of 5.4945 mils per $1,000 of assessed valuation, totaling the sum of $6,886,193 after an allowance for 5% collection allowance, are hereby specifically allocated in a portion to respective items for which the same are levied.
Thank you very much. I'll entertain a motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I'm assuming that there are no public comment cards for this item?
I didn't see any.
None.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Commissioner McBride.
if I'm not mistaken, our next up is the city budget, which includes the setting of various rates, including the electric rate. And as many of you know, I had a concern last time about how we were going about that, and it came to my attention yesterday that the city had additional information that would have influenced our discussion of the electric rates and as a result of the budget that was not available to us. I didn't know about it until yesterday when I asked the consultant for it. And he said, oh yeah, I sent that to the city last Tuesday morning. I provided copies of that to everyone, and the commissioners all received it this morning early as well.
Have these
And I would like
documents
that to
been?
be included in our discussion of that.
Sure. Yeah, I'm fine with including it in the discussion. Just want to ask a couple of questions because we haven't seen this. Number one, was this email sent and not distributed to us for part of our discussion?
It was distributed, it was either last night or this morning to
This
the
morning,
commission.
yeah.
Okay.
So-
And is this document that's standing before us intact, what was distributed?
Yes.
Because there's typed in versions on the left and right, and just want to make sure.
The graphs were the parts that Burton had generated. I think Commissioner McGoy
Yeah.
crafted the language to the right.
Okay, so you crafted the language to the right, but these charts were the ones that were submitted by the Florida Consultants. Okay,
And I think he also added the red.
you added the red as well, Commissioner
Yeah,
McCoy?
that's correct. And I sent that same figure to our electric utility director and asked him to verify that everything I had in there was consistent with what Burton had provided, and he indicated that it's correct.
Okay, so just for the record, if any of these documents are shared or published, just to note that the original document from the consultants are the graphs in their original fund without the red addition and without the dialogue boxes to the right of each of those graphs. Okay, thank you, please proceed.
Well, Madam Mayor, I'm sorry,
Did you want to get a motion on the floor and then debate the motion?
That's fine.
Motion for what?
Motion.
Well, normally I read the.
we have to go through our script.
You have to do it legally.
First, so that everything's covered legally, and then you can make a motion with a second and have discussion as you normally would on that.
Okay, excellent. The next item, to adopt the operating budget for fiscal year 2015-16. At this time, the city attorney will read the resolution to adopt the operating budget.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Resolution number 53-2015 is a general appropriation resolution of the City of Lake Worth Municipal Corporation of the State of Florida, making separate and several appropriations for necessary operating expenses, the uses and expenses of the various funds and departments of the city for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2015, and ending September 30, 2016, and providing for the effective date thereof.
I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Now we'll have our discussion. You have a public comment?
Yeah, I'd like to just put this into the record as well, that expenditures for the FY 2016 annual operating budget total $178,862,120 for all city funds. The highlights for the budget are no change in the general fund millage rate of 5.495 mils, no change in the county fire MSTU rate of 3.4581 mils, use of $66,889 of general fund available fund balance, a 4% increase in salaries across the board, an increase in ad valorem revenues approximately $458,000 due to increased property values, additional state shared revenues of approximately $383,000 over what we received in FY 2015, an increase in local sewer rates of 3% after a reduction in the prior 2 years at 20%. The need to increase in the current year stems from increased costs for sewage treatment. Larry must have wrote this one. The need for the increase in the current year stems from increased cost of sewage treatment by the East Central Region and the wastewater treatment facility, an increase in water rates at 3.5% to fund new wells and other capital needs, and no rate increases for electric, sanitation, or stormwater operations. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a public comment card from Joanne Golden.
Hopefully my public comment won't be commented on publicly with us. I didn't think that was what public comments were about, but nonetheless. This budget, this is the first time we've been able to comment on the budget, really. And all the meetings have been workshops and there hasn't been public comment. So that is a problem that I find with the lack of citizen participation in the budgeting process. And also the fact that it was brought up that some of the numbers weren't verifiable at the last meeting. So I have a difficult time with you all approving the budget. That one, haven't had any input from the public except for tonight, and two, hasn't come up with verifiable numbers that everybody has agreed upon. So thank you. My name is Joanne Golden, 502 North Palmer.
Thank you. Peggy Fisher?
Fisher, 508 North 8th Street. Contrary to what was just said, there was public comment on the budget at the last meeting on September 15, 2015. It's unfortunate that we have to comment before there's discussion amongst you all, because I get the distinct feeling that there is going to be an intense discussion about raising electric rates. Where is the public comment, discussion, talk to the people, get the people's feedback on any such proposal to raise rates that affects everyone who uses electric utilities in this city, Palm Springs, other service areas? Where is the public input? I don't see it, I don't hear it, I don't see any opportunity to provide it. If there is a proposal on this dais tonight to raise electric rates in this budget, you are not doing your jobs of letting the people, and we just heard, you didn't let the people have public comment on the budget. Well, I think public comment on something that affects their pocketbook and their living is just as important. So I'm very opposed to any proposal of electric rates going up, plus anything that was distributed to you all, I did not see it on the website. Was it provided to the public on the city's website when it was distributed today? Was it uploaded for the public to see?
Thank you. Commissioner McBoyd?
Did you hear me?
Well, well, no, but I do have a question if you don't mind.
Yes.
If we're gonna have a conversation here about, Commissioner McBoy's concern about the electric rates, I just wanna say I have a concern about the document that you presented to us tonight. The concern I have is it's been altered, and I suspect this could be a matter of the public record. And I would much rather have just the graphs themselves submitted as a matter of public record and not his opinion and his calculations, because I think that's really important to the discussion. Because, you know, he's concerned about the validity of the numbers. Well, we don't know if these numbers are valid either, the numbers he's provided to the right of these graphs.
Okay. Commissioner McBoyd?
Thank you. I've heard some good concerns both from the public and from my fellow commissioner. Obviously, if I were to take numbers from a consultant and graphs and alter them in terms of content, that would, and then present them as, you know, who knows what, that would be a real problem. I will explain exactly how those were formed and who's reviewed them. The issue of this being made available not on the website and being made available at a late time, I completely agree, is a very serious concern. Our normal procedure for doing electric rate settings is we have a consultant, we have two consultants, Burton and Associates that works on our water rates and Mark Beauchamp that works on our electric rates. They both had many years of experience doing it, both with this city and with many other cities. This year, there was no working with Mark Beauchamp, who sets the electric rates. Normally that's done in a public meeting. I was told when I asked about it last meeting that, oh, Mr. Beauchamp, who does the electric rates, has been working with Mr. Burton. I checked with the Burton folks. What they said is, no, we didn't work on setting electric rates. He gave us a little input when we asked some questions. So we did not have an electric rate setting process this year. We did not have it at all. Public discussion, private discussion, nothing. What we did have is that I raised some concerns about the whole process because I had seen things in the Burton analysis of our budget and projecting forward that caused concern to me. That basically what I was seeing, as I've mentioned at several meetings before, is an indication that the way that we had achieved holding the rates constant was simply by each year chipping down our reserves. And I've checked with Burton, and I raised that at the last meeting with the electric rates. What I did not know at the time that I raised it is that our electric utility director had also talked with Burton and Associates, and Burton had provided 3 options of how to deal with the electric rates. Burton recognized numerous times that yes, that's what we've been doing. We've been whittling down our reserves, the operating funds. And that's not just a casual thing, but actually there are industry standards of how much reserves you should maintain. And we were below that already. And we were dropping. And I said, that is not a responsible thing to do. It's not a responsible business model to just say, well, we're going to hold the rates at whatever and we'll just make it work somehow or other. Because that raises concerns about safety of workers, it raises concerns about reliability of the system, it raises concerns about maintenance, it raises concerns about wages for employees and being able to attract and retain good employees. So I had a concern. It really concerns me that the city, and you have the email right here, dated Tuesday, September 15th, 8:54 a.m. Jack, based on our discussions, it's in front of me, and I asked that this be included in the public record, as well as the analysis, or the graph that I did, which I'll explain how those relate to the email that was sent. This was not presented to us. And let me read from you. He presented 3 options, Eric Van Mollison, the consultant for Burton, of how we might address this problem of the declining reserves. He gave us 3 options. A 1% increase each year from fiscal year 2017 through 2019. That gets you to a 3-month reserve by fiscal year 2020. That's 5 years out from now. That's kind of operating below the, the suggested level, and 3 months is that's a minimal. Takes until 2020 to get out there. That was the option that was presented. That was the only thing we saw last week. There were 2 more options that we were not made aware of and should have been. Option 2, 1% increases, same as the other one, except that you start, like we should, right now, as part of this proposed budget, 2016, 17, and 18. That gets you to the 3 months reserve a year earlier, by 2019. That's still a ways out, but at least you gain a year on it. You're getting back on course a year sooner. Option 3 that he suggested was raise the rates only for 2 years, raise it 2%, and start right away in the 2016 budget, the ones that we're proposing here, and for 2016-17, and that gets you the target, again, a year earlier. What you see in this graph, and I'm happy I have it here if the city clerk would like to make it available up there, it's on here in the Lake Worth folder. This,
Is that this thing?
yeah, it's exactly the same as that.
Clyde, just hit the Adobe, please. Down there. That's it, thank you.
Oh, wow, look at that. There you go. All right, so let me tell you, because of course you want to know where these graphs came from. The graphs are simply screen captures of the 3 files that Burton sent. What I have overlaid on top of that is I put a circle on the year that you achieved the target. So, and the options are the 3 that I just described. The option that the only one that we saw last week was the one that gets us to achieving a reasonable, not a great business model, but a reasonable, the 3-month target, that black line, in 2020. Nobody objected to the idea of raising the rates by 1% a year for the next 3 years, just not starting this coming year. Nobody had any problem with that, but it takes you to 2020. What we didn't see is if you slide that up a year and start right now, when you know you've got a problem, that gets you there a year sooner. If you do a different one, start right now, but do 2% a year, you can get there even a year sooner. It's still a ways out. The text that I added on the side simply labels the options. It labels the start year, 2017, 16, or 16. It tells you when you reach your target. Healthy is perhaps not the best choice, but healthy in the sense that you reach your 3-month target. And underneath, which is straight out of the Burton report, what this means to the average monthly bill. 76 cents a month for the average bill in Lake Worth. That's what we're talking about. That's what this commission, or some of them on it, do not want to do. It's easy to talk about how terrible it is to raise electric rates. It's not so easy to justify why you would operate the utility in a very poor business model when you know that you've been doing that and running it into the ground. And the cost to the average citizen is 76 cents a month.
Point of order.
Or if you do it
Point of order.
with option 3.
Keep it in line, please, without accusing the commission, thank you.
Or if you wanted to do the strongest option, option 3, that fixes the problem the quickest, that would cost you $1.53 a month on an average bill.
First of all,
This information, there is no excuse that this was not presented way, way earlier in the process. It should not have been presented at the meeting when we're approving the final budget. This should have been a discussion way earlier. We should have had Mark Beauchamp here walking us through this stuff, giving us a report of what we've been doing with the utility over a longer period.
I just want to state for clarification that I did not agree to any increases in the electric rates. He made a generalized statement that all of us agree to a 1% or whatever increase over the next 3 years. Are there anybody else that needs to clarify that?
I'd like to
Agreed.
clarify it as well.
Okay, so not everybody agreed to any increases, plus by law, a law in fact that we created, which is a rate parity law, we cannot increase the electric utility rates by a law that was approved by this commission 3 years ago. So that's just number one. Number two, if we're using, well, okay, go ahead, Vice Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, and Commissioner McBoyd, thank you for your comments. I just want to point something out here again, and that is, when we started this budget process, I think it was, apparently that's yours. When we started this budget process, it looked very strong like we may have to consider raising the electric rates when we started the budget process several months ago. And I won't speak for anybody else, but I'll speak for myself. I was deeply concerned about it, and I'm not gonna lie, I told the city manager, we've gotta find a way, we need to find a way to keep our commitment to the public, okay? Well, as it turns out, we had a new utility director come on board, and within a matter of days or a week or so, he found $2.2 or $2.3 million that was just tucked away for a rainy day that the previous utility director, for whatever reason known only to him, didn't bother to spend. So he was sandbagging his budget all along, okay? Well, I would tell you that when that revelation was made, you became very animated over that good news, which I think most people would consider good news. In fact, you were not concerned about this process at all until the new utility director uncovered these millions of dollars. But that's,
Let's direct towards me if you could,
and,
please.
and frankly, it appears that you were fine with the process until, you know, you found this money. Okay, so now you're talking about the Burton model and the rate consultant and all these things. Why didn't you bring that up 3 months ago or 4 months ago if you were so deeply concerned? Okay, furthermore, after looking at this chart that I see we already loaded into the screen, I want to again raise my objections to this document. Either we mark it as being Commissioner McBoyd's work in his opinion, or we don't put it into the record at all, because I don't think that Burton Associates used the word healthy in describe, you know, a lot of hearsay is coming into Commissioner McBoyd's conversation here. And to suggest that we're being unhealthy in our business practices and letting this document slide like this is not appropriate. Okay, it's wholly inappropriate. I can live with the graphs, and if these graphs were available, I would like to know myself why they weren't provided to us. I would agree with Commissioner McBoyd on that, but I do not agree about putting this document into the record with Commissioner McBoyd's opinions directed to the right. I think it needs to be duly noted.
City Manager, can you answer that question, please?
Remember, the Burton model process is an active, interactive process that we look at data in real time. When this was presented, I distinctly remember there being a lot of plug-and-play discussions. Y'all looked at various scenarios about how to get us there quicker or later. So I don't know exactly which scenarios and what things you ran through, but y'all did play with these numbers during that. It wasn't a static screenshot that said, you know, here's, I think y'all got to the final version, and I think the commission, y'all played with the different rates and structures in there, so I don't know that it's relevant that there were screenshots given in this format when y'all went through that exercise in real time. Does that make sense? Y'all were directing the Burton, Eric, to actually plug in these numbers and show what it would look like if you did a 0.5% or 1%, or if you did a different contribution. So y'all looked at the various scenarios and were comfortable with no increase this year and 1%, 1%. So that's my recollection of the process.
Commissioner McBoyd?
What we saw, let me address a couple things. First is a factual error on Commissioner Maxwell's part, that I only became worried about this when our new electric director raised the point that he had found $2.2 million. Absolutely false. I raised this concern when we saw the first one of these graphs with the data that was provided by the city to Burton, and it showed, and you remember this discussion very clearly because I referred to it a number of times, it showed that at one time we had been above $10 million of operating reserve, and on the course that we were on, we were going to end up at minus 20 million by 2025. I was very alarmed by that, raised that concern. a while later, people came back and said, well, you know, the numbers that we got from the city, or the numbers the city said, Burton didn't say, the city said, well, the numbers that we gave Burton, they weren't quite right. We did this, and we did that, and they waved their hands. And they came back with something that looked, I think it was pretty close to option one. Might have been slightly different, but basically the same thing. And I said, well, that looks a lot better. I'm skeptical that suddenly we found $30 million over 10 years. Very skeptical about that, because that's kind of a big find. But all right. But I'm still seeing, even after that find, dropping trend that extends out a ways in your operating reserves. And they're starting off right now. Forget about what they're dropping in the future. They're below the target. And let me read you what the target says. Based upon this is from the Burton letter. Based upon our industry experience, utilities will generally target a minimum working capital reserve, or operating reserve, that's what that is there, in the range of 2 to 6 months, not 3 months, 2 to 6 months of annual operating and maintenance expenses. I talked with Burton at length, and they said, you know, that 2 to 6, the 6 is because in Florida, as opposed to other places, other utilities, we have hurricanes. So you might want to go on the high end of that reserve. So the 3 months is very clearly not at the top end of that range by any means. This range is also consistent, the 2 to 6 month one, with what municipal bond rating agencies consider adequate for a strong utility system. That's the origin of the so-called opinion in this, which is where I said healthy in such and such a year. Forget the word health if you don't like that. You can use the word strong, whatever you want. It is simply indicating the year that your reserves hit your target of 3 months, which is a minimum kind of a target. So I stand by these. I ask that they be put in the record. I ask that the full Burton reports of these 3 options also be included in the record. I asked that and I had Jack review this to make sure it was consistent with Burton. And he said, yep, this is correct. So I stand by these, and I am very concerned that for a mere 76 cents a month, whichever of those options you want to do, 76 cents or $1.50, whichever you want to go, we could start turning the electric utility back to where it goes. And by the way, that 2 million is reflected in these graphs. That's already with that find. That was a one-off find that he found coming in. Normal procedure. It's got nothing to do with what pattern you were on as far as dropping your reserves.
Vice
So-
Mayor?
No, I just want to know, I think Commissioner McFoy said all he needs to say, or is going to say, I need to know how we're going to handle this document, what the commission wants to do with this document.
I think that the document needs to be put, if you would like it added to the formal documents, it needs to be put in the original graph on form and not with any additional embellishment to it. If you want to pull a Burton model and put that in the form, that's fine to put it in there. You've got for the record, your comments on that form are duly noted in this meeting and will be recorded for all time to hear about it.